Hello, my loves. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Matilda of Lazy Camel Collective, and surprise, surprise, we have another thrift flip planned today. I love thrift flips because I just love seeing the potential in the colors, the textures, the patterns, all the things in clothes that I find at the thrift store and breathing new life into them and giving them a new lease on life. Thrift flips are also really amazing because 85% of clothes that get donated end up going to landfill anyways. So thrift flips are a great way to repurpose and revitalize clothes at the thrift store without contributing to textile waste. For today's thrift flip, we're actually only working with one piece that I found at the thrift store this weekend. This is her. It is this long maxi dress set. It has like this long dress and then also this button down that goes over top of it. It's giving very like 90s, early 2000s grandma chic. I saw her in the thrift store this weekend and I was intrigued. I think that there's a lot of potential here. I really love the texture of this fabric. It has kind of like a crinkle texture to it. I don't know, I just love it and I think there's a lot of potential here. I also really love this color purple. I think it looks really nice on my skin tone and I love the flowers on this as well. I think it's very pretty. I think it'll be the perfect new piece to add to my spring wardrobe. We have so much material to work with here, so I actually think we're gonna turn this one piece, I guess technically it's two pieces, into three new items to add to my wardrobe. The dress, I think we're going to shorten and make like a little bit more of like a hitting my knee kind of situation instead of being like a full length dress. And then the top, we're going to turn into probably some kind of like baby doll, crinkled, maybe do some shearing kind of situation. We're going to keep the buttons, I think, and probably kind of repurpose the sleeves on here as well. And we should have enough material left over from the dress to make another little mini skirt as well. I'm really excited. I think that there's a lot that we can do here. I'm going to do my best to be resourceful with the limited amount of material that we have. I know we have a lot of material to work with, but like with all thrift flips, we only have the material that we have here, so there's not a lot of room for mistakes. I'm going to keep it relatively simple today. We're still going to work some magic and do some amazing things, but I think when we're finished with this piece, we're not even going to recognize it, and I'm just going to have three new pieces that I absolutely love and will wear all the time. So let's get to it. Okay, I'm going to be starting out with the button-down shirt first. This little guy. This is my inspiration for this piece. I really want to do kind of a gathered ruffled top again, kind of similar to the crop top, the scarf crop top that I did last week. I really loved how that turned out with the mesh fabric, and so I think I want to do something kind of similar to that for this piece. So I think doing kind of like a gathering at the bust and then have more of like a tighter waist. I'm going to keep, I think, the buttons. I'm going to repurpose the sleeves and do kind of like a gathered, ruffled, kind of off the shoulder kind of sleeve for this. So in order to do that, we're going to do some gathering at the top of the sleeves and then attach it to kind of the top part of the shirt. I think that's just gonna look so cute, so girly, feminine, like just perfect for the summertime. So let's see what we can do. I'm very excited for this one. Let's get to it. If anybody was ever wondering what it looked like inside of my head, it is this. So starting out with this shirt, I'm just cutting the length of the shirt away from the button down. So I buttoned up the shirt all the way and then just made sure everything was laying flat, buttoned up all the buttons, and I'm just cutting right underneath the armpit there so that we get the most amount of fabric that we can from the shirt. And then since we have a raw hem across the top of the shirt here, I'm just taking it over to my sewing machine and I'm doing a quick zigzag stitch all along the top edge of the shirt just to finish that seam. And since we're doing kind of like a ruffled top situation. I didn't want to do like a rolled hem or anything, so I didn't want to add a ton of bulkiness. And I think having that raw hem at the top looks really, really cute, kind of contrasted with the ruffles that we're going to do. And I also think with the see-through kind of mesh fabric that we're working with, a rolled hem would kind of just look kind of awkward anyways. So we're doing the quick rolled hem with the zigzag stitch, and then we're going to go on and add our elastic in. And then to get that kind of ruffled, gathered look that we're going for across the top and the bust of the shirt, we're going to use shearing elastic. You can get a big roll of this for like $10. And the process of using it is very simple. It's the same as using any kind of regular thread. But the only difference is that you do have to hand wind your bobbin, which isn't as bad as it seems. It probably takes like 3 minutes to do. So you see here, I'm just winding up my bobbin with my hand. Try not to put any tension on the elastic while you're threading it through the bobbin. Just put it on very, very loosely. And I only had to do this once for this project. I didn't have to rewind my bobbin. So one bobbin goes a long way. And then you just go ahead and put your bobbin into your machine like you normally would. If you have a top loading bobbin, it's the same as you normally would with any other kind of bobbin, and same for a bottom loading bobbin. And then I'm just doing, I think, 3 lines of elastic across the top of the shirt. I started about a quarter or a half of an inch away from the top seam and literally just sewed a straight line all across the top of the shirt. And then I did another ½ inch space from that line of sewing, and then another ½ inch away from that one. So 3 lines total. So it's about probably about like 1.5 inches total of the shearing elastic that I did across the top. And you can see here how pretty and like ruffly it looks. I just think it looks so cute and girly when it's finished. So yeah, just went ahead and did that. And then I'm going to do another line or 2 across the bottom part of the shirt, kind of underneath my bust. Okay, so this is how things are looking so far. I did notice that with the shearing that we did along the bust and the top here, it did cause some like gapping where the buttons are. So I think I'm just gonna go ahead and do like a straight stitch right down the front here, just until the bottom shearing, just to connect the left and right pieces of the shirt together to prevent that gapping from happening. But yeah, I really like how this is coming along so far. I'm kind of curious about maybe taking out some of the bulk in the bottom. I think it probably looks okay. I think I'm gonna wait and see how it looks once I put the sleeves on and just see how that kind of makes everything come together. But I don't know. I'm just worried it's maybe looking a little bit bulky, but maybe that's kind of part of the cutesiness of it, is that it's just kind of like flowy. The next step is to add the sleeves on. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the sleeves off of the shirt, and then I'm going to do that same zigzag stitch around the top, and then I'm going to do 1 or 2, probably 2 lines of shearing just around like the top part of the sleeves to make it kind of scrunchy. And then really what I'm just going to do is attach the bottom part of the sleeves just to like the top part of the shirt right here. I'm not sure. We'll see how it looks with kind of the flowy sleeve that we already have. But if that looks kind of weird, I'll probably do a couple lines of shearing around the bottom part of the sleeve just to kind of have like that poofy sleeve kind of look. But I'm going to see how it looks just straight up like that, and then we'll go from there. So now I'm just cutting away the sleeves from the original button-down shirt, and I'm doing that for both of the sleeves. And then I'm just going to flatten them out and cut off some of that excess fabric on the shoulder. These were really, really big, so I ended up having to cut off quite a big amount from the shoulder. And then I did put my regular bobbin back into my sewing machine, and I'm doing a quick zigzag stitch back and forth along the top edge of the sleeve just to finish those edges off. And then I'm going to put my bobbin thread back in the machine again and do another, I think I just did 1 single stitch along the top of the sleeve here just to have kind of that cute ruffled elastic kind of look. And then the final step in the shirt is to just pin those little sleeves to the top. I think I pinned it like maybe 3 or 4 inches onto the side of the shirt. And that I think was enough to kind of make sure it was securely on there. And then we're just sewing everything into place, making sure that it's all secure. I think I did a zigzag stitch here just so that we didn't have any frayed edges, and just making sure that it was exactly where I wanted it to be. Oh my gosh. I am so happy with how this turned out. I once again had a loose vision in my mind for what this would look like, and I feel like it looks amazing. I feel like it's the perfect spring and summer piece. I can imagine myself wearing this with a denim skirt or like a pair of shorts or like a short little mini skirt. I just think it's so cute and fun and playful and girly. I love the ruffles and kind of like the baby doll like bottom of it. I just think it turned out so cute. And nothing went wrong. Everything went so smoothly. I don't know. The sewing gods were in our favor today, I guess. I feel like if you've been watching my videos for the past couple of weeks, you know that often we run into challenges and we make mistakes. So I think either luck was on our side today, or maybe this is a sign that I'm improving my sewing skills, or maybe all of the above. So that's kind of positive and reassuring and makes me kind of happy. So yeah, I just really love how it turned out. I think it's just very cute and fun, and I'm so excited to get moving on the rest of our thrift flips of the day. So moving right along, we're gonna get started on the dress. This is kind of the inspiration that I have for this piece. I just love this so much. I think it's so like 90s, early 2000s, very chic, very girly, very summer and feminine. So I'm gonna try my best to recreate it. I'm gonna use the leftover fabric from the top that we just made in order to make the ties for the halter top. And then we're gonna cut kind of a low back in the back of the dress. And I'm actually going to attach an elastic to the back waistband, and that'll allow it to stretch enough to put on and take off. So then we'll have like a little bit of like a flowy but still kind of form-fitting dress situation. So we're going to start by cutting off the length of the dress, and hopefully we'll have enough material left over in order to make that skirt. And then basically it's going to just be attaching the front and back pieces of the dress, cutting out the back panel, cutting the halter top, attaching the front and back pieces to the lining, attaching everything back together, and it should be relatively simple. I feel like I say that at the beginning of every single thrift flip, and then it's so much more difficult than I anticipate. But I like going into things with a positive, happy, achieving mindset. So we'll see how it goes. I think this is going to turn out so cute, especially with this pattern and this color. So let's see what we can do. Let's get started. So our first step is to cut the length of the dress. I had already measured this on myself and knew where I wanted to cut. But some subtle foreshadowing here. We're about to run into some challenges, some issues. So I won't really talk about this too much because you'll see what's about to happen. Okay, well, the thrift gods have already abandoned me. I don't know what happened. I know what happened. I just spaced out, but I meant to cut an inch lower than where I pinned so that I would have extra room for seam allowance for the skirt. So it would be a little bit longer and I'd have more room to work with. And I think I just got turned around because I like turned the fabric to the side, and I don't know. I literally don't. I think I'm just tired. It's been a long day. It's been a long week, truly. And I accidentally cut an inch shorter on the dress instead of an inch longer. So now it's too short. Like even just raw, it's too short as a dress. And then when I hem it to like, finish the edge, it's gonna be even way too short. So, well, these things happen. We move on, we pivot. So I think I'm gonna make the same design that I was originally planning on making for the dress, but I'm just I'm just gonna make it a shirt instead. So I'm still gonna do like the halter neck, and like the lower back and with the ties and everything. I think that's just gonna be what we're gonna do instead. The good news is this means that I have a little bit of extra fabric to work with, so we can play around, maybe add some more straps somewhere or something. I don't know. But yeah, I'm disappointed. I was really excited about making this dress. But that's okay. Now I can have like a matching set with the skirt that I'm planning on making, and I think that'll be cute. But okay, well, let's try again. Hopefully nothing else goes wrong. All right, let's get to it. Okay, trying again, take two. I'm just taking the dress over to Madeline the mannequin and marking where I want to cut my halter top, and I'm adding about 1/2 inch for seam allowance. If you don't have a mannequin, you can just do the same process just on yourself. You can just put it on and do it in the mirror and just kind of trace where you want it to lay on your body. Never fret. We can be scrappy here. I just happen to have a mannequin. And then I'm taking the material back over to my table and I'm just cutting everything apart. There's the lining that's attached, there's the front piece that's attached. So I'm just cutting up the seam, I'm cutting the lining away from the main fabric, and then I'm detaching the front and back pieces as well, so that we're basically just starting from scratch with all of these pieces of fabric. And then starting with the front pieces of the fabric, we're just gonna take our ruler and our scissors or rotary cutter, whatever you have, and I'm just cutting right along that line that we made on the mannequin. And then I'm gonna fold that fabric in half, and then we're just gonna trace with our scissors on the other side of the same piece of fabric to mirror what we did on the first side, so that we have two perfectly symmetrical little slices for our halter top. And then as I was doing those cuts, my rotary cutter fell apart. This is normal, it's kind of supposed to do that, so here I am just figuring out how to put it back together. And I was fighting with my rotary cutter all day today. I don't know what was going on. The blade is like 4 or 5 years old. It's so dull. So you guys should keep watching my videos and liking them and subscribing to my channel so that I can afford to buy a new blade for my rotary cutter, so that you don't have to watch me going over the same cut 5 or 6 times in order to separate the fabric. Anyways, now I'm just cutting off the length of the shirt. I had already measured this and I double measured it to make sure that I was cutting 1 inch longer than I wanted it to instead of 1 inch shorter by accident. And then I'm just going to cut off some of the width of the shirt. This was like a million sizes too big on me. So I cut off, I think, 4 inches on each side. And then I'm just doing the same thing on the front part of the shirt, measuring out the length and then cutting off the width as well. And I'm just using my lining as measurement because they're going to be exactly the same. Next, I'm just working on the back part of the dress. I am detaching the zipper first. So just cutting that out, and then we actually are left with 2 panels instead of 1 piece because we cut out that zipper. So I'm just cutting out the back panels of the shirt, and I just used the front piece that we had already cut out and just measured how far it was from the armpit, like under the armpit, to the bottom of the shirt. Next up, we're going to make the straps. So I'm just taking all of the leftover fabric that I have from this project so far and detaching any pieces that are still attached to the lining and laying it all flat just to see how much material I have to work with, which luckily is a pretty good amount. So I took my biggest piece of leftover fabric and just folded it into quarters so that I wouldn't have to cut super long pieces of fabric at once. And I'm just cutting out 1.5 inch pieces of fabric. And I think each strap will be about 25 inches long. And then I'm taking my straps over to my sewing machine and I'm just sewing a straight line all the way down the length of each strap. And you want the tube to be about 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch wide. Okay, and then this is the part that literally changed my life. You're gonna find a straw, preferably the smallest straw that you can find, and you're just gonna feed that bad boy into the tube that you just created and just feed it all the way until it's sticking out at the end. And then you take your little strap turner and you attach it to your fabric, and then you just pull it through the tube. And it's literally so easy. Like that literally took me maybe 30 seconds to turn that tube right side out. And look at this. It's beautiful. I'm floored. Oh my God. I have to jump on here and talk about this strap flipping method that I just tried. So if you've been watching my videos for a couple weeks now, you know how much I hate flipping straps, and you know how much I hate making skinny straps specifically, because the past couple times that I've done it, they just like fray, they fall apart. It also usually takes me literally an hour to flip them, and that's not even an exaggeration. Like if I'm doing many straps, like it takes me so long. That literally just took me 2 minutes, like maybe even less. Okay, I'm skipping ahead to making those really long straps because you don't need to watch a 30-minute video of me just making straps, but to walk you through the process of how I made the really long straps for the back of the corset. I think I had 4 of those pieces of fabric that I had cut out, and I'm just sewing those all together so that I have one long piece of fabric. And then I'm just doing the same thing that I did for the shorter straps, which is just sewing that like 1/2 inch tube down the length of the entire strap, which took a really long time because this was literally like, I think 6 feet long. It's such a long piece of fabric. And then feeding that straw into the tube, and then feeding my little strap turner into the tube, grabbing that piece of fabric, and then pulling it all the way out of the tube to flip it the right way around. And then I'm just giving a quick little press just to crisp everything up, which didn't actually work, just because, I don't know, this was a weird material and it just didn't like my iron for some reason. Okay, now it's time to assemble. So I'm just laying the main part of my fabric face up on my table. And then I'm taking my 2 straps and just lining it up with the corners of the halter top. And I'm just scooching it over about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch from the corner where we cut. And then I'm just pinning it down so that they stay in place. And then I'm taking my lining and laying it down right sides facing down. So you'll be looking at the wrong side of the lining. And then we're just going to pin everything together around the top of the shirt and then also along the bottom. So we're not going to be pinning or sewing the side pieces of the shirt, and that's going to allow us to be able to flip everything right sides out once we're finished sewing. So I'm just moving those straps out of the way and then pinning along the bottom of the shirt here. And then we're just doing the same thing for the back panels. So I'm just laying the main fabric face up again and then the lining fabric face down. And then I'm pinning all along the top, one side, and then the bottom of this panel. And make sure when you're doing this that whichever side you pin on one piece, you pin the opposite on the other piece, if that makes sense, because we're going to be attaching them to the left and right sides of the shirt. So we just need to make sure that we're mirroring where we pin and sew. And we're back at our sewing machine, just stitching right along where we pinned on the front part of the shirt and then the back 2 panels as well. And I just flipped everything right side out so we could get a quick little look at how things are coming along, and I just love how this is looking. I'm so happy. And then I'm going to trim out any bulkiness around our seams so that when we flip this right side out, it's just like a nice smooth edge that we have. Okay, now it's time for assembly. So I'm just flipping everything right side out again, and then I'm just gonna pin the back pieces to the front. And when I tried this on, it actually ended up being way too big on me, so I just ended up taking it in by, I think, about like 8 inches total actually, because we are gonna have that corset tie in the back. So this really can be like my true waist and bust measurements. So I took a lot out after trying it on and then just pinned it all back together, and then we're going to take it over to the sewing machine and finish everything up. So now I'm just setting up my machine to do those buttonholes. So just putting my buttonhole attachment on my machine, and I put just like a little button into the back there. I just used one of the leftover ones from this shirt actually. And then I put my settings on the buttonhole settings and then tested it out on a scrap piece of fabric and just sewed 3 buttons down each side of the back, ripped open the holes, and the shirt is almost ready to be done. And then I'm just feeding my tie through all of those buttonholes, going back and forth all the way down the back of the shirt. And once I finish that, we're in business. We have a new shirt. I love this. Oh my gosh. I love a halter neck. I did tie this kind of too tight on here and I can't breathe right now, but I love a halter neck. I love the back too. I think there is like some bulking where I have the ties here, and I'm not really sure what caused that. If anybody has any thoughts for how to get rid of like kind of the bulking in the back when I tie the corset, let me know in the comments, because that always seems to happen when I do like a corset top or like a corset tie. But otherwise, I think it's very fun. I think it fits very nicely. It like hits exactly on my waist where I want it to. So I'm very, very happy with that. And again, I just love this color purple. I think it's just so pretty and so perfect for the summertime. So I'm so excited to wear it. And I'm glad it's like different than the first piece that we made. I think I would have been kind of bummed out if like the dress had gone wrong and then I don't know, like I just ended up making kind of 2 of the same things. But I'm glad that we kind of stuck with the original design of like the dress and just turned it into shirt form. I've been wanting to do kind of another corset back top for a while now, and this was a great opportunity to do that. So with all mistakes come good things. So that's just, I think, the lesson of the day. So up next, we are working on the final piece, which is the skirt. So this is the material that we have left. I don't know why it's being so weird, but let me just put this part. So this is plenty of material. You can see plenty of material to make a skirt with. This is my inspiration photo. I can't remember if I shared it earlier in the video. Whatever. I've been wanting to make a skirt like this for such a long time, ever since I saw this photo on Pinterest, honestly, or wherever I found it for the first time. I love the like high slit mini skirt situation, and I've just been waiting until I had like a mesh skirt material with a lining in order to do this, and today's the day. It's finally happening. So this should be super simple, super quick. I think that I'm just gonna keep the amount of material that we have and then just reconnect the front and back pieces, or like the main piece with the lining, and then flip it over, sew a tube along the top so that we have a casing to feed the elastic through, put the elastic in, and that's all she wrote. We have a skirt. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be done. I'm excited to take a break from sewing for the day. So let's get to it. So I'm just starting out by preparing the fabric to make the skirt. So I'm just detaching the front and back pieces of the lining, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the main piece of fabric here. And I'm going to cut the width of the fabric first. We're going to use this entire length, so I'm really just going to cut the width here. And I took my hip measurement, which was I think 40 inches, and then I added 4 inches to that for some wiggle room and then also for seam allowance, and then I divided that in half for our front and back piece measurement. So 22 inches total, and I'm just folding these in half just so that I don't have to cut like a super long piece of fabric. Just kind of reduces room for error. And then doing the same exact thing for the main 2 pieces of the skirt as well. And now it's time for assembly. So I'm laying the right sides together for the main part of the skirt, and then I'm just measuring where I want the slit to start and then pinning up from the bottom from there. So starting pinning where I want the slit to be and then pinning all the way up to the top of the skirt from that point. I think I left like 4 or 5 inches open from the bottom for the slit here. And then I'm doing the same thing for the lining as well, but I'm starting the slit a little bit higher up on the lining. So I think I left more like 6 inches open from the bottom on the lining. And then pretty simple, just sewing everything together, doing a straight stitch down the side seam, and we're stopping at the bottom there where we put our final pin and leaving that slit open on each side of the skirt. And then I'm just finishing the seam on the slits with a little rolled hem. Honestly, like this looks just as bad here in this video as it does in real life. There was something going on with either this fabric or my sewing machine settings or the tension. Something was up because all of my seams just were getting so like bunchy like this. You can see it pretty well here. I don't really know what was happening, but it kind of ruined the outcome of this skirt, honestly. Now we're going to attach the main part of the skirt to the lining. So I'm just kind of scooching the main part of the skirt inside of the lining with the right sides facing each other, and then just pinning all along the top edge there. And the end goal is to flip out the right side of the skirt and have the lining on the inside, and that will hide that seam that we're going to make really nicely, and we'll have like a really nice clean finished edge. Taking it over to the sewing machine just to sew right along where we pinned all along the top edge of the skirt to attach the main fabric to the line. And then I flip the skirt right side out, and I'm taking it back over to my sewing machine and sewing a 3/4 of an inch tube all the way along the top edge of the skirt to have a place to feed our elastic through. And then I'm using a pretty skinny elastic here. I had one that was about a quarter or I think it was a half an inch wide. So I'm just feeding that all the way around the waistband of the skirt, bringing it out to the other side, and then just attaching the two ends together to finish up the loop. Okay, well, I kind of hate how this skirt turned out, but that's okay. They can't all be winners. I'm trying to figure out like what exactly went wrong. The biggest issue when I was doing the hems and sewing the edges, I don't know if it was my machine, if like there's something funky going on with my machine, or if I had like the tension screwed up, or if it was the fabric that it was like too kind of slippery kind of a material. But the seams all got like bunchy when I was sewing them together. And so that kind of created this weird like bunchy seams. And so that kind of messed up just like the general assembly of the skirt. And I think that led to kind of the weird like tightness of it. I don't really know how to describe it. I think that was the biggest issue. And then like when I was finishing my seams, like they all just like the whole material just kind of like shrunk together. And it was like almost like, remember when we were doing in the first piece how we were using the elastic thread and how it was like bunching up like that when it went through the machine. It like literally was doing that with this skirt, and I had like played around with the tension to like see if it could like if there was something up with that, and it was still doing that. So that kind of makes me think it was probably this material. So I don't know if I need to use like a different kind of presser foot for this kind of material. So if any expert sewists watching this have any advice for me, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I'll probably do some research myself, but if anybody can help me diagnose this problem, I would be very, very grateful and very appreciative. But yeah, it's fine. I'll probably go in and like play around with it. It also just like it doesn't have like the swooshiness that I was going for. Like I really wanted it to be kind of like flowy and swooshy, and I think maybe part of that is maybe I needed to like use a little bit more fabric and not make it quite as small and quite as tight. So I think next time I'd probably not cut the fabric quite as small, but it was kind of tricky because I didn't want it to be like too flowy and too swooshy. Like I wanted to go for kind of like that medium kind of flowiness, if that makes sense. So I think maybe I erred a little bit too far on the less swooshy end of things. I need to stop saying that word. I think it's fine. I think with a little bit of tweaking, it'll be wearable, but I think right now it's just like kind of annoying to look at. It just like the slits aren't quite right. Yeah, those like weird like ruffly hems that ended up happening. I don't really know what's going on with that. But whatever, it was a learning experience. And hopefully I'll be able to salvage it in some way. So I'm sure I'll make a video in the future of fixing all of my sewing mistakes. Well, that's all that I have for you today. I truly cannot thank you enough for watching this video. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back and sticking with me through my sewing journey and all of the mistakes and mishaps and learning experiences, and for leaving such kind, thoughtful, considerate comments. I truly, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, am so grateful and thankful to every single one of you. I'm so grateful to get to share my love for sewing and sustainability and fashion and just wearing what you love and wearing what makes you happy. Thank you again so much for watching and for being here and for subscribing and commenting and liking. It truly means the world to me. I will keep doing what I'm doing if you keep showing up. But yeah, thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you for next week's video. Have a gorgeous day.